It was a clear spring afternoon, April 23, 2018. The sidewalks of Toronto's Yonge Street were full of life. Office workers on lunch breaks, shoppers enjoying the first real warmth of the season. And then, in a matter of seconds, everything changed. A white rental van jumped the curb. It accelerated down the sidewalk. People screamed as it plowed through pedestrians one by one. No slowing, no hesitation, just relentless destruction. By the time it stopped, 10 people were dead and 16 were injured. The city of Toronto, one of the safest in the world, was suddenly the site of one of the deadliest mass murders in Canadian history. The driver was a 25-year-old man named Alek Minassian. Who was he? And what could drive someone to commit such a horrifying act? Minassian wasn't a terrorist in the traditional sense. He wasn't part of any religious or political organization. He was a computer engineering student, quiet, socially awkward, with no prior criminal record. But behind that calm exterior was an ideology born on the internet, a dark subculture of rage, resentment, and misogyny. Alek Minassian identified himself as part of the Incel, movement short for involuntary celibate. It's an online community of mostly men who blame women for rejecting them, and who see sexual frustration as an injustice committed against them. Many of them glorify violence, celebrating figures like Elliot Rodger, the American mass killer who murdered 6 people in 2014 after posting a manifesto about his hatred for women. Minassian admired him. In fact, just before the attack, he posted a message to Facebook that read, "The Incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys." In that coded language, Chads means attractive, popular men, and Stacys means the women who date them. It was a declaration of war against a society he felt had rejected him. After mowing down pedestrians for nearly 2 kilometers, Minassian stopped the van. When police confronted him, he tried to provoke them into shooting him. He pointed a black object, later revealed to be his wallet, at the officer, pretending it was a gun, but the officer didn't fire. Instead, he calmly arrested Minassian on the spot. That restraint would later be praised as an extraordinary example of police professionalism. In the interrogation room, Minassian confessed almost immediately. He showed no remorse. He described his attack in chilling clinical detail, saying he wanted to inspire future attackers. He said he had chosen a rental van because it was the easiest weapon to obtain. He spoke not like a killer in rage, but like a man describing a computer program he'd written. As the trial began, Minassian's defense took an unusual turn. His lawyer didn't deny that he committed the attack. Instead, they argued that he was not criminally responsible due to autism spectrum disorder. They claimed his condition made him unable to fully understand the moral consequences of his actions, that he could tell right from wrong in theory, but not appreciate it emotionally. But the prosecution pushed back hard. They said Minassian wasn't driven by a lack of empathy. He was driven by ideology, by choice. He knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to make a statement, to be remembered. Throughout the trial, the court heard from psychiatrists, police officers, and experts on internet radicalization. What emerged was a portrait of a young man who meticulously planned every detail of the massacre. He chose the location, rented the vehicle days in advance, and deliberately selected a busy weekday to maximize casualties. It wasn't impulsive, it was strategic. The judge ultimately ruled that Alek Minassian was criminally responsible for his actions. In her decision, she wrote, "He made a choice. He knew it was wrong. He wanted to achieve notoriety." In 2021, he was convicted of 10 counts of first-degree murder and 16 counts of attempted murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years, the maximum allowed under Canadian law. But beyond the courtroom, the attack forced Canadians to confront a disturbing new threat, one that didn't fit the traditional mold of terrorism. The Incel ideology had moved from online hate forums into the real world. It wasn't about religion or nationalism, it was about gendered rage. The hatred of women, weaponized through loneliness and resentment. Since 2018, law enforcement agencies across North America have reclassified Incel-inspired attacks as a form of ideologically motivated violent extremism. It's now tracked alongside white supremacist and terrorist movements. The Toronto attack marked a turning point. It showed how radicalization doesn't require a terrorist group. It can happen alone, in silence, on a screen. The victims of that day represented the very diversity of Toronto itself. Men and women, young and old. People from Korea, Jordan, Sri Lanka, Canada, and beyond. Among them were students, retirees, and caregivers, ordinary people who never saw it coming. Their names deserve to be remembered more than his. Because while Alek Minassian wanted fame, the legacy of his act belongs to those he tried to erase. In the years since, Toronto has worked to heal. Memorials now line Yonge Street every April 23rd. Flowers, notes, and candles mark the path the van took, a path of loss and resilience. In the end, the story of Alek Minassian is about more than one man's descent into violence. It's about what happens when isolation turns into ideology, when the internet becomes an incubator for hate. It's about how an ordinary person can radicalize without ever leaving their bedroom. And it's about how easily words of resentment can turn into weapons of destruction. The Toronto van attack shattered the illusion that Canada is immune to acts of terror. It showed that extremism isn't always foreign. It can be homegrown, quiet, and invisible until it's too late. But it also revealed something deeper about this country. In the face of tragedy, the city refused to surrender to fear. Toronto came together, strangers helping strangers, compassion rising above chaos. The same humanity that Minassian tried to destroy became the thing that defined the city's response. Alek Minassian will spend decades behind bars. But the questions his crime raised are far from over. How do we stop online hate from breeding real-world violence? How do we recognize radicalization when it hides in plain sight? And how do we prevent another tragedy before it happens again? These are the questions that linger. Long after the sirens faded, long after the headlines moved on, long after the van was towed away. The Toronto van attack wasn't just an act of violence. It was a warning, one Canada can never afford to ignore.